Yeah.
Tell me, Amanda, well, first of all, thank you for being here. Where are you now and what time is it there?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me for the live IG live. I'm currently in Hong Kong, so it's like 1 a.m. in Hong Kong. But it's fine. It's fine. I'll just do the live and then I'll just get back to sleep right away. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for making such a great effort to be here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing? Your working languages. We want to know everything. So tell us.
Sure. I'm Amanda Chow. I'm a PhD student from City University of Hong Kong. My working languages are Chinese and English. For Chinese, I do Putonghua as well as Cantonese. And my research interest includes gender studies and audio description. I'm not sure if every one of you are familiar with audio description, so I'll be doing a brief introduction about it. So audio description in short is AD. AD transfers images into text for people who are visually impaired. It is being defined as a type of intersemiotic translation. AD is most commonly found in TV programs and movies, so some scholars categorize it under audio-visual translation. But the scholars Jack Yanxiu and Luo Kangte, they also defined AD as a type of intersemiotic interpreting, because AD is usually presented to people who are visually impaired in spoken form. So apart from AD, you can say my research interest also includes audiovisual translation and interpreting studies. Yeah.
Wow, that's so interesting. And well, you were a presenter at the last ATA 64 with a great success. How was that experience for you? Was it your first time there? And what can you tell us about that?
It is a great pleasure to be a speaker at ATA 64. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's so nice to have a platform to interact with all those practitioners and scholars, because most of the time I'm just working alone in this room. So it's a nice chat with all those scholars and practitioners. I've received a lot of constructive comments and encouragement from them. It is, in fact, the first time for me to join ATA, as well as the first time for me to be a speaker at a conference. So everything feels magical to me. Like, I had never thought that I can meet all those big names personally, not to mention being able to chat with them, because I always thought I will only to read their names in books and articles in the credits, but then I have a chance to talk with them and meet them face to face. Yeah, so I truly appreciate the effort in organizing such a conference for us. Yeah, I thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
It was a great experience. Also, it was my first time too there, and we had a blast, really. The vibe was impressive. So yeah, I agree with you. So let's go more in depth let's talk more in depth about the Chinese language, because I personally know nothing about Chinese language, just like a few words here and there, and that's all. But is it a gendered language?
It depends on how you define the term gendered language, because if you are referring gendered language as having gendered grammar, like in Spanish, they will have masculine nouns, feminine nouns, then in that case, Chinese is not a gendered language. We don't really have masculine or feminine nouns, but if the noun is related to biological sex, then the nouns are gendered. For example, when it comes to mother in Cantonese, it will be mama. For Mr., in Cantonese will be xin sang. These are all gendered nouns, and it is also applicable to animals. So if you're referring to a female chicken, a hen, then that will be mo gai. If it is referring to a male chicken, a rooster, then that will be gong gai. So if you are defining gendered language as having gendered grammar, then Chinese is not a gendered language. But if you define gendered language as sexist language, then yes, Chinese is a sexist language. So I've got a few examples over here. It will be easier for me to shift to the back camera so I can show all those words, characters to you all. Yeah, let's see.
Wow.
So for the phrase to marry, we got two ways in saying. So one is Chow, another one is ga. So if you're using Chow, you are in fact from the male's perspective, because the character here contains the radical. The lower part is Lui, and Lui is referring to female, and the upper part it's Chow. This means to take. So the character itself is implying the idea of taking a girl. So if you are from the male's perspective, you can, in a heteronormative society, I should say, usually will be saying the male Chow the woman. So in this case, it will be deemed as rather sexist, because the idea will be a man is taking a girl. But it's actually meaning to marry. So it is taking woman as a possession of men. While on the other hand, we also got another way to say to marry, that will be ga. And the idea of ga, again, it got the radical of lo, meaning female. And then the other part will be ga, referring to a family or a house. So the idea in here will be from the female's perspective, that she is getting into someone's family, she's getting into the man's family or house. So the idea, again, it's a bit sexist, because it's like implying that the woman is subordinated under the male's family. And for characters like describing the physical appearance of someone's, usually they will be associated with the radical of female as well. So for example, 嬌媚, it means coquettish in English. It's the equivalence of coquettish. So again, it is associated with female. And apart from that, sometimes female radicals can be associated with negative connotations as well. So for example, this character is gan, it means cunning. And just like any other characters, any other languages, in our language, some of the occupations are highly gendered stereotyped. For example, doctor in Cantonese will be 醫生, and normally we will be associating male into doctor. So usually when we say 醫生, it is referring to a male doctor. So in that case, when we are trying to address a female doctor, we'll have to put a gender marker, female. This means female, 女醫生. So this whole phrase will mean female doctor. Similarly with 護士, 護士 means a nurse, and if you're trying to address a male nurse, then you will have a gender marker of 男護士. That means a male nurse. And apart from using 護士, we also got another phrase called 姑娘 to refer to a nurse. Originally, 姑娘, this is only applicable to Cantonese, not for 普通话. And 姑娘 originally just mean any random young female. But because of how prevalent that females are working as nurses, a lot of times 姑娘 will be used to refer as a female nurse as well. And then it turns into a joke, because there are some instances in our daily lives for Cantonese speaker, we will be addressing male nurses as 男姑娘. If I do a direct translation of 男姑娘, that will be a male-female nurse. So it's become kind of funny and hilarious among the Cantonese speakers environment. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is
that's
what I'm trying
amazing.
to this is what I'm trying to demonstrate, is that Chinese is not a gendered language if you're talking about the gendered grammar, but it is a gendered language if you take it from a sexist language. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and it's exhausting because you have to think so much. And what you said, these professions are associated with male, female, and they are stereotypes, of course.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really interesting to see it from that point of view. And what is the difference with English? Because in English, most, for example, occupations are neutral. I think, yeah, mainly.
In English, in fact, although we got gender neutral professions, it is also true that it implied with a lot of gender stereotype. For example, nurses, it's so common for us to associate nurses with female, and for models as well. That's why we will add gender markers like male models. These are it is more common for us to add the gender marker male instead of female when it comes to models. So I guess some of the idea of sexist language is not only applicable to Chinese, but it can also be found in other languages. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the main difference between Chinese and English when it comes to gendered phrases, I would say it's more when it comes to pronouns. So for okay, I have to show the rest of my my slides again. Yeah. So for the pronouns in Chinese, in written Chinese, formal written Chinese, we do have gendered pronouns. We do have gendered pronouns. For example, this is the equivalence of he, him. This is the equivalence of she, her. This is the equivalence of it when you're referring to animals. This is the equivalence of it when you're referring to non-living things. These are all the singular form of the pronouns, and these are the plural form of it. These are only happen when you are doing formal written Chinese. And then for Cantonese, for written Cantonese, we don't have gendered pronouns. We only got gender neutral pronouns. So 佢 will be the singular form, and 佢哋 will be the plural form. So when we're talking about the written form, you will be able to differentiate the genders. However, because I'm working on audio descriptions, and audio descriptions are mostly presented in a spoken way. So although we got gendered pronouns, they can act as gender neutral pronouns because they all sound the same. So just all the characters that I'm showing you, in Putonghua, they will all pronounced as ta, and in Cantonese also only ta. And for the gender neutral pronouns of Cantonese, they are all pronounced all the same. So that's why we got gendered pronouns in Chinese, in Putonghua, in Cantonese, but when we presenting them in AD, they sound all the same, and you can't really differentiate whether the pronouns is referring to a he or a she or a non-binary character. So that's why it will be more convenient for us to address these non-binary characters, or it will be easier for us to do gender neutral descriptions. Yeah.
Wow, that's great, because you don't have to make an extra effort just to differentiate these characters. That's perfect. So what's going back to audio description, how is audio description done in China? Is it via government agencies or private companies or production companies?
So for audio descriptions projects in China, they are mainly produced in three ways. One is the government projects, and then it's the non-profit organizations projects, and lastly will be projects from training courses. Only a few of the projects are able to include production teams or the creative teams of the movie or the TV programs when they are drafting the AD. It is because translation or media accessibility services are often outsourced. And because of the copyright issues, organizations may not be able to have access to source movie or the source TV programs before the public release. So that's why a lot of times they can only do the AD after the public release. And there's a time that AD in China are all done through live AD because the organizations it's all done live because the organizations can only get the film and they are only able to release a film with a short amount of people and with live AD. So that means when they are watching the movies, they have to do an AD. They have to describe all those images to the people who are visually impaired right away. So that's why the scholars Jackie Yanxiu and Luo Kangte, they specify that AD should be identified as a type of intersemiotic interpreting as well, because of the real-time nature of it. Yeah.
I can imagine the anxiety and stressful environment to do an audio description live.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be really, really difficult. Have you done it in some I don't know, or some projects or?
Yeah.
No.
I haven't tried live AD before. All I have worked on is mainly scripted AD. So the idea, I don't have any experience in working on AD for movies or TV programs, but I have tried producing AD for a museum guided tour. So, and there are short movies, short video clips about the exhibits. So what I have tried to do is that I watch all those movies again and again and again and again, and then I draft all those AD scripts so that I will be able to produce. I will able to say it fluently when I am guiding my visitors. Yeah, this is how I try to work on it. I've never worked on live AD as well. Yeah, I guess it must be just it must be very hard. I was an interpreter. I worked as an interpreter before. So I can't really imagine how they do live AD. Yeah.
No, me neither. Me neither. I mean, I admire the courage and the expertise. It's amazing, and what you do throughout the description and reaching out audiences that were left out before. I mean, it's really remarkable, really.
Yeah.
And do you know when audio description started in China and how this practice is extended up to these days?
Yeah. Before I answer your question, I have to do a disclaimer because I will be mentioning some of the organizations that I'm affiliated to, but I'm not trying to advertise for them or promoting them. I'm just trying to report what they have done or what they're going to do. So it's telling you about the development of AD in China. So China started audio description in the early 21st century, and AD is first started by the non-governmental organizations. They are mainly doing AD to provide entertainment for people who are visually impaired. And in China, they are not only focusing on AD, they are in fact producing something we call as barrier-free movies. So in the movies, they include audio descriptions, subtitles for people with hearing loss, sign language interpretation. The idea is to provide a more comprehensive media accessibility and to cater the needs of various social groups. Unluckily, there are no regulations to ensure the sufficient provision of AD, and there are no official guidelines on AD production currently. but the mainland Chinese government is aware of the social needs, and they have published more than 400 barrier-free movies by the end of 2019. For Hong Kong government, the governmental broadcaster Radio Television Hong Kong RTHK started to provide regular services since 2022. But the very first Cantonese TV program with AD was released in 2016. It is provided by View TV, a free broadcaster run by a private company. However, they don't provide regular AD programs. Their AD programs are more one-off. So most of the ADs are in fact produced by non-governmental organizations. And among all the cities in China, Shanghai is one of the key cities in promoting AD. One of the organizations called Sound of Light Barrier-Free Film and TV Culture Development Center. It is founded by Han Ying, who is a woman with acquired blindness. So it is an organization led by people who are visually impaired to produce AD for people who are visually impaired, or even to more extended social groups. And in Hong Kong, for Hong Kong movies, the AD are mostly produced by the Hong Kong Society for the Blind. And Hong Kong Blind Union HKBU is another organization that is led by people who are visually impaired, and they are providing AD for sports programs since 2020. So in that case, they are mostly working on live AD. And then talking about the AD from Training Courses project, there is an organization in Shanghai called 儿以科技. The founder is Han Dongxue, and she is a former actress. So she has all the connections with producers, with actors and actresses. Therefore, in her AD projects, she is able to incorporate the creative team and the production team to collaborate the AD scripts all together. And this is quite rare, in fact, in the development of AD in China. And then in Hong Kong, we also got the Audio Description Association Hong Kong to provide AD for these museum tours. The organization is established by Dawning Learn, and she has also organized training courses for training professional audio describers. And apart from these private institutions providing training courses, some of the universities in Hong Kong, as well as mainland China, but focusing on Hong Kong universities. So the first university in Hong Kong to incorporate AD into their curriculum is Baptist University of Hong Kong. And then later on, Zhuhai College of Higher Education also have free courses on audio description and media accessibility. And City University of Hong Kong has incorporated AD into the interpreting class instead of audio-visual translation. And they have collaboration with Hong Kong Audio Description Studies Association, HKADSA, which is founded by one of the associate professor of CityU, Professor Jackie Yan Xiu. And for the organization, they are going to produce AD for a movie. And in the past, they have provided AD services for a gallery tour. And in my previous answers, I have mainly focused on AD in movies and TV programs because I am doing an IG Live with the audiovisual division. But services of AD is not only restricted to TV programs and movies. They are also having AD services for museums, for stage performances, and AD is available for Chinese opera as well. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in such a short time, because it's, if you think about it, it's quite new. I mean, at the turn of the century, you started more to provide. I mean, to focus on the description and to provide services and the association. So it's amazing how much you have achieved in such a short time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And what about gender neutral or LGBTQ plus? Sorry, I wanted to say the acronym right. What about those projects? How do you how's the approach to do out the description of those projects?
From my observation, all for these descriptions, when we have to deal with gender neutral or LGBTQ plus projects, usually we address characters through their names to avoid misgendering the characters. Because for names, they can be unisex, they can be gendered, you name it. It's all about your interpretation. So it can avoid the issues of misgendering characters. And for Chinese AD, it is more convenient for us because we got although we got gendered pronouns, they can be used as gender neutral pronouns in a spoken form. For example, what I've mentioned, like ta, ko, these are all gender neutral pronouns that we can use to describe gender neutral or non-binary characters. But one thing I have to remind all of you is that this is, we got these gender neutral pronouns not because we are highly aware of gender diversity. We got these gender neutral pronouns just because of the special feature of our language. Is the language feature, is not because we are highly aware of it. Yeah. And then for English AD, because they got gendered pronouns and because the use of singular they, them as a gender neutral pronoun is not yet being officialized in textbooks. So some of the audience and some of the characters or cast that are being described, they found it quite confusing. They may not be able to catch that the use of they, them is referring to a gender neutral descriptions or gender neutral characters. So in that case, some of the English AD, in fact, use a mix of gendered pronouns to show the non-binary characteristics of their casts. So they may use a female name to be associated with male pronouns to show that it is a non-binary character or it's a transgender character. And apart from that, some of the audio describers may just narrate the physical appearance or behaviors to let the audience interpret whether it is a female or a male or a non-binary character. They let the audience to decide to identify the gender. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you make a comment maybe at the beginning of the film or when the character appears saying this is a non-binary character or gay, lesbian, I don't know, or just you just describe what's happening and the physical appearance and that's all. And the audience has to infer like the sexual orientation of these characters.
In fact, there's a rule of thumb when we are working on AD, which is what we call as relevance. So the audio describers, they will filter what information is relevant and is useful for people who are visually impaired to understand the plot. But then the idea of relevance is very vague. Some of you may found gender very important, some of you may found race very important, then how do you make such a balance between it? So unfortunately, there are no specific guidelines or rules for gender neutral descriptions or how gender should be depicted in AD. only guidelines I can found is from the Canadian Association of Broadcasters, CAB. They suggested describing characters through the following sequence. First, the race, the ethnicity, then the physical appearance, facial expressions, relationships, attire, age, accent, hair, clothes, height, weight, and lastly, gender. As well as disability before gender, and gender is the last to be mentioned. It is because they believe that audience will be able to infer the gender of the characters through, for example, physical appearance, relationships, attire, and any other kinds of elements. And I have chatted with a young adult who is blind, and I have asked about how do you tell one's gender usually. And he told me that most of the time he interprets gender through other social cues. For example, the voice of the person. So it is not necessary to state one's gender explicitly, but they can in fact implicitly get it. They will be able to implicitly understand someone's gender, especially when most of the people who are visually impaired, in fact, acquired blindness in the later stage of their life. Not a lot of people who are visually impaired got blindness when they are born. They're not born with blindness. A lot of them acquired blindness in the later stage of life. So they, in fact, got all these conceptions of gender. They recognize gender. However, I have also talked with an elderly who acquired blindness because of aging. And she has told me that when it comes to the descriptions of non-binary characters, that can be quite confusing for her. And she explicitly said that because the character is not a male and is not a female as well. So she doesn't know what kind of gender that character can be categorized into. So I was wondering, when we are doing audio description, when we're doing AD, we should also take our audience into consideration. If they are still bound by the binary understanding of gender, meaning understanding gender as only female and male, then it will be very hard for you to introduce gender neutral descriptions to them. But if your audience, they are highly aware of the progressive definition of gender as a non-binary, as it can transcend beyond male and female, then maybe it's a nice chance for you to use gender neutral description.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. Yeah. It's a very sensitive topic. That's why I was asking, because of course, when we do, I mean, one of the difficulties I find in audio description and also in SDH subtitles, I mean, accessibility in general, is that sometimes we translators or interpreters who can see and can hear, sometimes we exaggerate in our description. So it's very difficult to find the limit and to see, well, I don't have to underestimate my audience, but also I have to be explaining what is happening for them to enjoy the experience. So I think it's really, really difficult to do that. I mean, you have to be very, very special, and you have to have a different mindset to work on these projects, or a special mindset to work on these projects. I don't know if you agree with me, but.
Yeah, of course. What I mean is that we are all different in our own ways, and even though they have hearing loss, even though they got visual impairment, they still have abilities to experience the world. It's just that they don't experience the world like how we do. And in fact, the way I experience the world is different from how you experience the world. So in a broader sense, we are all experiencing the world in different senses only. We all got our own ways in understanding the world. So we should not be thinking that they are the disabled one. They may not have the ability to do some kind of things. In fact, we are all using our own ways to do what we are trying to do. So yeah, sometimes
that's a great.
sometimes we may be too patronizing and we underestimated their abilities.
Yeah, that's a great way of seeing this. Yeah, absolutely. And you told me that there are no specific guidelines, because I was going to ask you about this, but you told us there are no specific guidelines or government based guidelines apart from the Canadian Association. And how do you manage these projects when, I mean, each association has its own set of rules or suggestions, or how is it done?
I should say, from the guidelines that I'm able to find online and I'm able to have access to, they seldom talk about how gender should be described. They didn't even mention the word gender or sexuality. So currently what I'm trying to do is to find how practitioners deal with gendered descriptions. That's all I'm trying to work on. Yeah. And currently what I've said is the observations that I found.
Wow. Yeah. Well, maybe in the future, someone or some people will gather and say, okay, let's create these guidelines for Chinese projects, all the descriptions, and everyone will work more comfortably. I mean, when you have guidelines, it's better. I mean, you can deviate sometimes from the guidelines in very specific cases, but having standards is easier for everyone working in this field. So and well, I know at your presentation you talked about the Danish Girl, which is a great movie. I mean, most of us have seen it, but you also mentioned a film called Tracey, which is a Hong Kong film, if I'm not mistaken. So can you tell us to Western audiences what this film is about?
Yeah. For Tracey, it is a Hong Kong movie, and the story talks about the life of a middle-aged married male to female transgender. He is originally named as Travis, and after he did the gender affirmation operation, she changed her name into Tracey. And in the beginning of the movie, we were told that Travis married to Anne and had a daughter and a son. But Travis and Anne did not sleep in the same room. They sleep in a separate room. And Anne even got a dialogue saying that sex is prohibited in their house. So it kind of conveys that the relationship between Travis and Anne is not how we conventionally viewed as a couple. And Travis secretly wore woman underwear underneath his clothes when he is at office. So when he is away from his wife, Anne, he will be using his own ways to satisfy his desire to be a woman in his daily lives. And one day, Travis got a call from London, and he learned about that his childhood crush, Ko Cheng, which is a man, has passed away. And the caller is Ko Cheng's husband, Bon. And he came to Hong Kong to hold Ko Cheng's funeral. So it gives a chance for Travis to meet Bon as well. And meanwhile, Travis met his another old friend, Brother Darling, who was a famous Cantonese opera singer who often cross-dresses from male to female. Cross-dressing is a tradition in Chinese opera. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily meaning that the singers or the performers are transgender in a narrow sense. It's just that it's the tradition of it. And it just happens that in the movie, the character is a Cantonese opera singer as well as a transgender. So after meeting Bon, who is a gay man, and Brother Darling, who is a transgender, Travis recalls all those urge and desire to be a woman. And after a series of events happened, he reviewed his deepest secret, that he is a woman trapped in a male body. So he decided to undergo the gender affirmation operation. For his wife, Anne, was heavily against it, while his son was perplexed, and his daughter supports her father's decision. So I've summarized the story of the movie, but there are still a lot of details and side stories within it. So if you're interested, highly recommended to take a look of to watch the movie of Tracey. For the audio descriptions, they only provided the Chinese AD. They only have Chinese AD. However, they got English subtitles. They got English subtitles as well. So you may not be able to enjoy the ADs, but you can definitely enjoy the content of it. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for summarizing the movie for us. We'll look for it and see it, because it's a very interesting topic. And from the challenges you mentioned about the description, I'm thinking maybe not in Chinese, because as you said, you have no pronouns or gender pronouns, but maybe in English, if you have to use the they or he or she, but you are talking about a character that was male at the beginning and then you say she, how it may be confusing or not, I know. It depends on, I think, on the quality or on the expertise of the audio describer, definitely. I was, while you were narrating the movie, I was thinking about Spanish, and we have gendered pronouns and gendered adjectives, and now there's controversial use of the letter E to denote these non-binary characters or gender neutral characters. But anyway, it's amazing. I mean, you know so much about this. Well, you're doing research about this topic, so it shows because it's so interesting. So before we leave this chat, because it's been over almost an hour, are there any audio description projects you're working at the moment, or which was your favorite audio description projects? If you can tell us a little bit about that without infringing any confidentiality rules or.
Yeah, sure. So this is one of my favorite AD. This is the movie called Yip Man, the fight. So I'm not sure if Yip Man rings a bell to you, but Yip Man is a Wing Chun master. It's the legend of Wing Chun master. And Wing Chun is a kind of Chinese martial art. So for this movie is in fact an action movie with a lot of fighting scenes. So when it comes to fighting scenes, there are no dialogues and only random fighting sounds can be heard. And when I was watching this movie, I try to watch it without the aid, and I try to watch it with my eyes closed. All I can hear is the sounds of strong wind. I know they are fighting, but I don't really know what exactly happening. And regrettably to say, although I'm a Chinese, I'm not familiar with the Chinese martial arts. I'm not familiar with Wing Chun. So that's it. That moment that I started to think, oh, how about I just shift to the AD channel and see if I can learn anything from it. So this is the very first time for me to listen to AD. This is life changing because it is the moment that I that audio descriptions is not only for people who are visually impaired. It is beneficial for any kind of social groups. And it will be able to provide you with a lot of cultural implications and knowledge that you won't be able to get when you're normally watching the original channel of the movie. So that's why this is definitely one of my favorite. And when you're asking me about projects, this is the first thing that I have in mind. And for this movie, because it's also a Hong Kong movie, so they only provide Chinese audio descriptions. But they also provide English subtitles. So I guess you'll be able to get some of the information. You'll be able to enjoy some part of it anyway. And the audio description of this is really impressive because for all those fighting scenes, they are very intense. So each martial arts move may only last for a few seconds, but the audio describer still manages to describe those moves in detail. And they even able to include the facial expressions of their characters. So I did learn a lot from this Chinese AD. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Unchun because I've seen movies and and it's so fast that it's impossible to describe everything as it happens because I can imagine. But it's a great reference. I will look for it. So well, we come to an end because we've been talking for almost 1 hour, and so. Again, thank you so much. It's been so interesting and so enlightening for us who I'm so, I know what audio description is about, but I know nothing about Chinese language. So delving into this new world, a new language and different culture, I mean, it's amazing. And for you being there up at 1 a.m. in the morning to talk to us, I mean, I cannot thank you enough. So it's been a pleasure to meet you in person at the ATA 64. I hope we can meet again sometime in the future. And thank you so much for being there, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to join this, and also I've been thrilled to share about anything about audio description in the future, and I wish to meet all of you. And thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah, for inviting me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Okay, and for all of you there, thank you for listening to this live interview. If you want to see it later on, remember it's on our Instagram account, so you can access all live interviews there, and also you can watch them on our YouTube channel. Yeah. So see you next time with another very interesting interview also. Thank you for being there. Happy Saturday. See you next time. Bye-bye.